Olivia Bennett stood before the large window of the Bennett family gallery, watching the autumn rain streak down the glass. At 26, she had imagined her life would look different. She had dreamed of traveling to Florence, of studying Renaissance masters, of perhaps opening her own studio one day. Instead, she spent her mornings teaching art to middle schoolers and her evenings, desperately trying to keep her family's gallery from closing forever. The gallery had been her grandfather's dream. Built 40 years ago in a quiet corner of downtown Portland, it was never about making millions. It was about bringing beauty into ordinary lives, giving local artists a chance to be seen, creating a space where the community could gather and feel inspired. But dreams did not pay medical bills. Beauty did not negotiate with banks. A father's broken spirit, Thomas Bennett, sat at the small desk in the back office. His reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed the documents for what must have been the 100th time. He looked older than his 58 years. The past 2 years had carved deep lines into his face, ever since his wife Catherine had been diagnosed with cancer. The treatments had been brutal and expensive. Insurance covered some costs, but not enough. Never enough. Olivia entered the office carrying 2 cups of tea. Her father glanced up, attempting a smile that did not reach his eyes. She set the cup before him and sat down in the creaky chair opposite his desk. "We received another notice from the bank," Thomas said quietly. "We have 3 weeks. 3 weeks before they begin foreclosure proceedings." Olivia felt her chest tighten. The gallery was not just a business. It was her childhood, filled with memories of her mother laughing as she arranged paintings, of her father patiently teaching her about color theory, of community art classes that had shaped dozens of young lives. Losing it would break what remained of her father's spirit. "There has to be something we can do," Olivia insisted, though she had said these same words countless times before. "We could try another loan, maybe reach out to art collectors for donations. Start a crowdfunding campaign." Thomas shook his head slowly. "We owe $320,000, sweetheart. Crowdfunding will not cover that. The bank has given us every extension they can. We have run out of options." An unexpected visitor. The bell above the gallery door chimed, announcing a visitor. Olivia rose to greet whoever had braved the rain to visit. She stepped into the main gallery space and stopped short. The man who entered was unlike their typical visitors. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than 3 months of gallery revenue. His dark hair was styled with precision, and his presence commanded attention without effort. He carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had never been denied anything in his life. He was tall, perhaps 6'2", with sharp features and intense hazel eyes that swept across the gallery's modest collection with an assessing gaze. Olivia noticed his shoes were Italian leather. The watch on his wrist was definitely a Rolex. "Good afternoon," Olivia said, smoothing her simple cotton dress self-consciously. "Can I help you find something?" The man's gaze settled on her. "Are you Olivia Bennett?" "I am," she replied, confusion creeping into her voice. "Have we met?" "No, but I am here to meet with you and your father. My name is Julian Westbrook." The name meant nothing to Olivia, but she saw her father emerge from the office, his expression shifting from confusion to recognition to something that looked almost like hope, mixed with apprehension. "Mr. Westbrook," Thomas said, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming." Olivia looked between them. "Dad, what is happening?" The proposal. They sat in the small gallery cafe area, surrounded by paintings of coastal landscapes and abstract expressions of emotion. Julian Westbrook sat with perfect posture, his hands folded on the table, his expression unreadable. "I will be direct," Julian began, his voice smooth and controlled. "I have reviewed your financial situation thoroughly. Your gallery faces foreclosure in 3 weeks. You owe a substantial sum that you have no realistic means of repaying." Thomas nodded, defeat evident in every line of his body. "I am prepared to pay your entire debt," Julian continued. "Additionally, I will provide a monthly allowance sufficient to keep the gallery operational and ensure your family's comfort." Olivia's heart leaped, then immediately sank. "What do you want in return?" Julian turned his full attention to her. Those hazel eyes were startling up close, intelligent, and cautious, A wife. The word hung in the air like smoke. "Excuse me?" Olivia managed. "I need a wife," Julian repeated calmly. "Not a real marriage. A contractual arrangement. 2 years. You would live in my home, accompany me to business functions and social events, and maintain the convincing appearance of a devoted spouse. In exchange, your family's debt disappears, your father keeps his gallery, and you receive a personal allowance of $10,000 per month." Olivia felt the world tilt. This cannot be real. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you need this?" Julian's expression remained neutral. "I am the CEO of Westbrook Development, one of the largest real estate companies on the West Coast. My business partners and investors are traditional. They value family, stability, commitment. As a single man in my mid-30s, I am perceived as unpredictable, too focused on work. It's potentially unstable for long-term ventures. A wife changes that perception immediately. It is strategic necessity, but there must be women in your world who would actually want to marry you," Olivia protested. "Precisely the problem. Women in my social circle have expectations, family connections, ambitions that would complicate a simple arrangement. You have no such entanglements. This would be clean, straightforward, mutually beneficial. After 2 years, we divorce amicably. Your life improves significantly. Mine becomes easier. Everyone benefits." The impossible decision. Julian excused himself to allow them privacy. The moment he left, Olivia turned to her father. "Dad, this is insane. You cannot seriously be considering this." Thomas looked at his daughter with eyes full of pain. "I would never ask this of you, sweetheart. Never, but he found us. He made this offer, and I have run out of ways to save us." Olivia thought of her mother, still recovering, still fragile. She thought of the gallery, of the children she taught who came from difficult homes and found peace in painting. She thought of her father's lifetime of work, of her grandfather's legacy. She thought of her own dreams, her plans to maybe fall in love someday with someone who actually loved her back. Then she looked at her father's broken expression and made her choice. When Julian returned, "I have conditions." One of his eyebrows rose slightly. "Go on. I continue teaching. I see my parents whenever I want. I get everything in writing. And after 2 years, this ends completely and cleanly." Julian nodded once, agreed. "My attorney will prepare the contracts. We marry Friday at the courthouse. Bring whatever you want to keep. Everything else will be provided." Just like that, Olivia Bennett's life changed forever. Olivia stood in the marble foyer of Julian Westbrook's penthouse, her 2 suitcases looking pathetically small against the vast expanse of luxury surrounding her. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a breathtaking view of downtown Portland, the city lights twinkling like earthbound stars. Everything gleamed with wealth, polished marble floors, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than a car, abstract art that might actually be original pieces worth fortunes. Julian stood near the entrance, his suit jacket draped over one arm, watching her take in her new home with an expression she could not read. "Your room is on the 2nd floor," he said, gesturing toward a floating staircase that looked like it defied gravity. "First door on the left. You have your own bathroom and walk-in closet. I have arranged for a stylist to come tomorrow to provide appropriate clothing for upcoming events." "Appropriate clothing," Olivia repeated, feeling a sting of inadequacy. For the first time, something flickered in Julian's eyes. It might have been regret. "I did not mean offense. The events we will attend have expectations. Black tie galas, charity auctions, business dinners. I want you to feel comfortable." Olivia nodded, too overwhelmed to argue. "Where's your room?" "End of the hall. You will have complete privacy. This arrangement does not require anything beyond public appearances." The words should have been reassuring. Instead, they felt cold, emphasizing the transactional nature of their situation. This was not a marriage. It was a performance. Discovering the method behind the Manthe, first week passed an uncomfortable adjustment. Olivia continued teaching at Lincoln Middle School, taking the bus each morning from Julian's building in her regular clothes, then returning to change for whatever evening obligation awaited. Julian maintained a precise schedule that he shared with her via a digital calendar. Monday, business dinner with Japanese investors. Wednesday, charity gala for the Children's Hospital. Friday, cocktail reception for the Chamber of Commerce. They barely spoke beyond coordinating logistics. Julian left for his office before dawn and often returned after Olivia had gone to bed. When they did occupy the same space, he was unfailingly polite but distant, treating her like a colleague rather than a wife. On Thursday evening, Olivia found herself alone in the penthouse. Julian had mentioned a late meeting. She made herself tea and wandered through the space, trying to understand the man she had married. The living room was immaculate and impersonal. No photographs, no personal mementos, nothing that revealed who Julian Westbrook actually was beneath the expensive suits. She moved to his study, hesitating at the doorway. He had not explicitly forbidden her from entering any room, but she felt like an intruder nonetheless. The study was different from the rest of the penthouse. Books lined the walls, actual physical books rather than decorative props. She scanned the titles: philosophy, architecture, biographies of historical figures, and surprisingly, classic literature: Dickens, Austen, Tolstoy. Somehow, she had not imagined Julian reading novels. On the desk, partially hidden beneath a financial report, she spotted a folder. The tab read Hope Foundation. Curiosity overcoming caution, Olivia opened it. Inside were documents detailing donations to children's hospitals across the state. Substantial donations. The most recent was for $2 million to fund a new pediatric cancer wing. All given anonymously. Olivia heard the front door open. She quickly closed the folder and hurried out of the study, her heart pounding. She found Julian in the kitchen, loosening his tie. Looking exhausted in a way his perfectly composed exterior never revealed in public. "You are still awake," he observed. "Could not sleep. How was your meeting?" "Productive." Julian poured himself a glass of water, then seemed to notice her nervous energy. "Is something wrong?" Olivia made a split-second decision. "Why children's hospitals?" Julian's hand froze on the glass. His expression shuddered completely. "You were in my study. I am sorry. I was not snooping. I just saw the folder and I became curious about you. We are married, even if it is not real." "I know nothing about you," Julian set down his glass with careful precision. "What you need to know is outlined in our contract. That tells me what you do, not who you are," Olivia countered. "Why do you give so much money anonymously to sick children?" For a long moment, Julian said nothing. Then, surprising her, he spoke. "My younger sister, Amelia. She died when I was 16, leukemia. We had money for the best treatments, but it was not enough. I watched her suffer for 2 years. She was 8 when she died." The raw pain in his voice made Olivia's chest ache. "I am so sorry." Julian's mask slipped back into place. "It was a long time ago. The donations are simply practical philanthropy. Tax deductions." But Olivia had seen his face in that unguarded moment. The donations were not about taxes. They were about a brother who could not save his sister and spent his adult life trying to save others. The gala that changed everything Saturday arrived at the most important event yet. The annual Westbrook Development Charity Gala. Julian had explained that this evening was crucial. Board members, major investors, and business rivals would all attend. Their marriage needed to appear absolutely convincing. The stylist had delivered a gown that took Olivia's breath away, deep emerald silk that draped elegantly, making her feel like someone from a different world. A hairstylist and makeup artist arrived to complete the transformation. When Olivia descended the stairs, Julian was waiting in the foyer, wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo. He looked up, and for the first time since their wedding day, his carefully controlled expression slipped. His eyes widened slightly. Something that might have been appreciation flickered across his face. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. "Thank you. You clean up well yourself." In the car, Julian briefed her on key people she would meet. "Remember, we met at the gallery 6 months ago. I came in looking for art for my office. We had coffee, started talking, and I kept finding excuses to return. We have been together ever since. Keep it simple and consistent. What if someone asks personal questions? Answer honestly when you can. You teach art. You love your family. Your favorite artist is Monet. Those details make it believable. Julian paused. Just remember, we are supposed to be in love. Right, Olivia said softly. In love, the performance begins. The gala was held at the city's most exclusive hotel. Glittering affair of champagne, designer gowns, and wealth displayed without shame. Julian kept his hand at the small of Olivia's back as they entered. The touch professional, yet possessive enough to signal their relationship. Julian, there you are. A silver-haired man approached with a predatory smile. And this must be the bride we have all been so curious about, Olivia. This is Richard Chen, one of our board members. Julian introduced smoothly. Richard, my wife Olivia? Charming. Absolutely charming, Richard said, his eyes assessing her like a piece of property. Tell me, my dear, how did you manage to capture our workaholic Julian's heart? Olivia felt Julian's hand press slightly more firmly against her back, a silent signal. She smiled warmly. He came into my family's gallery looking for art. I showed him a landscape piece. We started talking about light and perspective. He kept coming back, claiming he needed more art for various offices. Eventually, I realized he was just making excuses to see me. Julian looked at her with what appeared to be genuine affection. In my defense, I did actually need art for those offices, Richard laughed. Love and business. The Westbrook way. Congratulations to you both. As Richard moved away, Julian leaned close to whisper, Well done. That was perfect. His breath against her ear sent an unexpected shiver through her. Olivia reminded herself sternly that this was acting. Nothing more. Cracks in the armor throughout the evening, they played their roles flawlessly. Julian introduced her to investors and partners, his hand never leaving her back or waist, creating the image of a man devoted to his wife. Olivia laughed at appropriate moments, engaged in conversations about art and education, allowed Julian to look at her with fabricated adoration. But as the night wore on, something shifted. Julian's touches began to feel less calculated, lingering a moment longer than strictly necessary. When she laughed genuinely at something an elderly woman said about her own courtship story, Olivia caught Julian watching her with an expression that was not performative at all. It was soft, almost wondering. During dinner, seated beside each other at a table with several board members, Julian's hand found hers under the table. It was not for show. No one could see. His fingers intertwined with hers, warm and solid, and he did not let go. Olivia's heart hammered. She told herself it meant nothing. They were both caught up in the performance. But when she glanced at him, she found him already looking at her. The intensity in his hazel eyes made her forget to breathe. After midnight, they returned to the penthouse. My feet ached from the heels, and I felt emotionally exhausted from the performance. In the elevator, Julian loosened his bow tie, the first sign of weariness I had seen from him all evening. You were remarkable tonight, he said, as we entered the penthouse. Everyone believed us completely. We make a convincing couple, I agreed, removing my earrings. All that practice lying. Julian stopped, turning to face me. Was it all lying? The question hung between us, dangerous and loaded. I met his gaze, seeing the same confusion I felt reflected in his eyes. Somewhere during the evening, the line between performance and reality had blurred. We shouldn't do this, I whispered. We have an agreement, 2 years, nothing more. You're right, Julian said, but he didn't move away. It's a business arrangement. Exactly business, but neither of us moved. We stood in the dimly lit foyer, the city lights casting shadows across Julian's face, and I realized with sudden clarity that I was in serious danger of breaking my own heart. Finally, Julian stepped back. Good night, Olivia. Good night. I climbed the stairs to my room, closed the door, and leaned against it. In the quiet darkness, I admitted the truth I had been avoiding. Julian Westbrook was on T, just the cold businessman I had married. He was complicated, wounded, and capable of a kindness he tried so hard to hide. and I was starting to care about him in ways our contract absolutely did not allow. 3 months into our arrangement, I'd established a routine that felt almost normal. I taught my students during the day, attended events with Julian in the evenings, and spent my nights in my separate room, trying not to think about the man sleeping down the hall. We had fallen into an easier companionship, sharing morning coffee before he left for work, discussing our days over occasional dinners at home. But normal was an illusion, and illusions always shatter eventually. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I was preparing breakfast when Julian emerged from his study, his face tense in a way I'd learned to recognize as serious trouble. "We have a problem," he said without preamble. "Sit down." I set down the coffee pot, my stomach nodding. "What happened?" Julian placed his phone on the counter, displaying an email. "Victor Ashford knows." Victor Ashford was Julian's primary business rival, a ruthless developer who had been trying to undermine Westbrook development for years. I had met him once at a business dinner, and his calculating eyes had made my skin crawl. "Knows what?" I asked, though I already understood. "It's about our arrangement." Someone talked, probably from the courthouse or my attorney's office. "Victor sent this email an hour ago. He is threatening to expose the marriage as a fraud unless I withdraw my bid on the Harbor District Development project." I felt cold spreading through my chest. "What happens if he exposes us?" Julian's jaw tightened. "At minimum, public humiliation. My business partners will question my integrity. Psst. Some contracts might be voided based on morality clauses. Your father's gallery debt is already paid, so that can't be reversed. But my reputation will be damaged significantly." His expression darkened, and you will be dragged through media scrutiny. "They'll paint you as a gold digger, someone who married for money." "I did marry for money," I said quietly. "To save my family." That was different. Julian's voice was fierce. "You made a sacrifice. You agreed to help me while helping your family. There's no shame in that. But the media won't see it that way. They will destroy you. So what do we do? Give Victor what he wants." Julian stood abruptly, pacing to the windows. "The Harbor District project is worth hundreds of millions. It would establish Westbrook Development as the dominant force in West Coast real estate for the next decade." He paused, turning back to me. "But I will not let him hurt you. If I have to withdraw the bid to protect you from this, I will." I stared at him, shocked. "You would give up that much?" Something in Julian's eyes made my heart race. "You're my wife, Olivia. Contract or not, I protect what is mine." The rest of the day passed in tense planning. Julian called his attorney, his head of security, and several trusted advisors. I went to teach my classes, but my mind was elsewhere, worrying about the storm approaching. That evening, I returned to find Julian in his study, surrounded by papers and looking more exhausted than I had ever seen him. I knocked softly on the doorframe. "Have you eaten?" He glanced up, seeming surprised to see me. "I'm not hungry." That wasn't the question. I entered, setting down a plate of pasta I had made. "Eat something. Stressing on an empty stomach helps no one." Julian looked at the food, then at me, and something in his expression softened. "Thank you." I sat across from him while he ate, neither of us speaking. Finally, I broke the silence. "Tell me about her." Julian's fork paused midway to his mouth. "Who?" "The woman who made you think marriage had to be a business transaction." He set down his fork carefully. "That's not relevant to our situation. It is if I'm supposed to understand you. We've been living together for 3 months, Julian. I know you drink your coffee black, that you read philosophy when you can't sleep, that you donate to children's hospitals every month. But I don't know why you're so afraid of real connection." Julian was quiet for a long moment, then he spoke, his voice low. "Her name was Victoria. We were engaged 5 years ago. I thought she loved me." He laughed bitterly. "I was naive then, believed in romance and partnership. I proposed after a year, gave her my grandmother's ring, started planning our future. What happened? I overheard her talking to her friend at an engagement party. She was laughing about how she had landed the rich developer, how she would never have to work again, how she was already planning what she would get in the divorce settlement." Julian's hands clenched. "She never loved me. She loved my bank account. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. Said I was foolish to think someone like her would want someone like me for any other reason." Anger surged through me. She was wrong. "You are more than your money, am I?" Julian met my gaze. Everyone wants something, Olivia. Victoria wanted wealth. My business partners want success. Even you married me for money to save your family. At least our arrangement is honest about what it is. The words stung, even though they held truth. Is that really what you think? That I'm just like her? Are you not? We made a deal. I pay, you perform. Clean and simple. I stood, hurt and angry. If that's all you see, then you're not paying attention at all. I turned to leave. Olivia, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. Sorry, Julian said quietly. That was unfair. You've been nothing but genuine. I just became very good at protecting myself after Victoria. It's too good, perhaps. 2 days later, everything came to a head. Victor Ashford published an anonymous tip to a gossip website, claiming to have proof that Julian Westbrook's marriage was a sham. The story spread like wildfire. My phone exploded with calls. Reporters showed up at my school. My father called, worried and confused. The gallery faced renewed scrutiny, with people questioning if my family had conspired in some kind of fraud. Julian immediately hired a crisis management team, but the damage was done. That evening, I returned to the penthouse to find Julian on the phone, his voice sharp with anger. When he saw me, he ended the call abruptly. Are you all right? He asked, crossing to me. Did the reporters bother you? I'm fine. My principal handled them. But Julian, my father is getting harassed. People are saying terrible things, that he sold his daughter. Julian's expression darkened. I will handle it. I'll make a statement. Take full responsibility. I'll say I pursued you. That the marriage is real, that any rumors are from jealous competitors. And if they don't believe you, then I'll prove it. Julian's voice was determined. I'll show every receipt, every moment we've spent together. I'll convince them this is real. But it's not real, I said softly. It's the problem. We've been pretending for months, and now the pretending isn't enough. Julian stared at me, something shifting in his expression. Is it pretending? The question stopped my heart. What? These past months, Julian continued, his voice rough. When I touch your hand at dinners, when I watch you laugh, when I come home and you've made dinner even though you don't have to. Is that pretending, Olivia? Because it hasn't felt like pretending to me? Tears pricked my eyes. Julian, we can't do this. We have a contract. Damn the contract. Julian stepped closer, his hazel eyes intense. I thought I could keep this purely business. But then you walked into that gallery, and you sacrificed 2 years of your life for your family without hesitation. You teach children art because you believe beauty matters. You donate your entire allowance to fund programs for kids who can't afford supplies. You think I don't know that? How did you know? I know everything about you, Olivia. Julian's voice dropped to almost a whisper. I know you take sugar in your tea, but not your coffee. I know you hum when you paint. I know you cry during sad movies. I know you're the most genuine, selfless person I have ever met, and I have been falling in love with you since the moment you challenged me in that gallery. And it terrifies me. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I've been falling in love with you too. I didn't want to. I tried so hard not to. But you're not the cold businessman you pretend to be. You are kind and wounded and trying so hard to protect yourself. And I see you, Julian. See who you really are. Julian cupped my face in his hands, wiping away my tears. I don't want to pretend anymore. I don't want separate rooms and an expiration date. I want something real with you. What about the contract? We tear it up. We start over properly this time. Agreements, no timelines. Just two people trying to figure out if what they feel is real. His voice turned vulnerable. I'm terrified I'll mess this up, but I want to try. For you, I want to try. I smiled through my tears. I want that too. Julian kissed me then. It was tender and desperate and real, filled with all the feelings we had been suppressing. When we pulled apart, both of us were breathless. What do we do about Victor? I asked. Julian's expression hardened. We tell the truth. Not that the marriage was fake, but that it started as an arrangement and became real. We control the narrative. And I will still win that Harbor District bid because I refuse to let Victor Ashford dictate my life. 6 months later, the scandal had been rough, but we weathered it together. Julian's honesty had surprised the media. Some criticized, but many found our story romantic. The business partners who mattered stayed loyal. Victor Ashford lost the bid and faced investigation for corporate espionage. My family's gallery thrived with renewed community support. I stood in that same gallery now, preparing for my first solo exhibition. Julian entered carrying flowers, having left work early to support me. "Nervous?" he asked, kissing my cheek. "Terrified? What if no one comes?" "They will come." Julian wrapped his arms around me from behind. "And even if they don't, I'm proud of you." I leaned into him, marveling at how natural this felt. No pretending, no contracts, just love. My father approached, beaming. "Olivia, sweetheart?" People are already lining up outside. As the gallery filled with visitors admiring my paintings, Julian squeezed my hand. "No regrets?" Looked at the man who had somehow become my everything. "Not a single one. Best contract I ever signed." Julian laughed, pulling me close. "Best contract I ever broke." And in a gallery filled with art and love and second chances, they kissed, no longer performing for anyone but themselves.